Hello and welcome to This is Africa Outdoors. I was recently searching on YouTube on how to catch tigerfish, and I actually realized that there's not much information on the topic. So I decided that we should make a video on it, considering that we have quite a decent amount of experience. This is going to be quite a comprehensive video. We're going to cover the topics of choosing a tiger fishing destination, the ideal setup for tiger fishing, the best lures to take on your trip, as well as other essential equipment that you'll need. We'll also cover where to fish and what structure to target, how to fish the lures and set the hook, as well as to fight your fish and land it, and then take an awesome photo and release your fish safely. This video is going to be quite long, so if you're only interested in certain topics, there will be timestamps to those in the description below, so you can skip ahead to the sections that you're interested in. But when you want to choose a tiger fishing destination, tigers are found throughout most of Africa, and we actually have 5 different species on the continent. The range extends all the way from northern KwaZulu-Natal all the way to the Nile River in Egypt, so they're quite extensive, and depending on which species you want to target is obviously going to affect where you fish for these awesome predatory game fish. There are many exotic destinations and remote areas that you can fish, but most people are going to stick to the more common areas. For the South African angler, Lake Chasini and the Pongola River are going to be your main destinations, as well as the Limpopo River, the Komati River, and both of their tributaries. Elsewhere in Africa, of course, the Zambezi, the Upper and Lower Zambezi, Lake Kariba and Cabora Bassa are going to be top tiger fishing destinations, as well as the Okavango Delta in Botswana. Elsewhere in Africa, Tanzania and Cameroon have excellent tiger fishing, and if you're really a truly intrepid explorer, the Congo River and the Central African Republic have truly incredible tiger fishing for the Goliath tigerfish. But that's for the brave people. I don't think most of us are going to be going on those trips. I really hope to one day, but that's a dream at the moment. When you want to pick your destination, you of course want to consider things like price, how you're going to get to your destination. Do you need a boat? Do you need a guide? Can you fish from the bank? How dangerous is the place you're going to? What kind of dangerous animals are there? Diseases like malaria and sleeping sickness from tsetse flies. So make sure you do your research and find the best place that suits you to go on your tiger fishing trip. Okay, so next we're discussing the ideal tigerfish setup. In terms of a rod, I'd probably go with something in the 7-foot range, and a lot of people think that you need the stiffest rod that ever existed to be an effective tiger fisherman, but I don't really think this is true. Depending on what line you're using really depends on how bendy your rod needs to be. For instance, if you're using braid, use a bit of a more flexible rod to absorb the impacts of when a tigerfish jumps and shakes its head. If you're going to use mono, I'll definitely go with a bit more of a stiffer rod because mono stretches. So just to keep that in mind, you need a balanced combo. You don't want something that's way too stiff or something that's way too bendy. Ideal for me would be a 7-foot medium heavy rod, paired with a 3,000 to 5,000 size reel with about 30-pound braid. That's a spinning combo. And then for bait casting, I like to go a bit heavier and use 50-pound braid on a bait casting setup. Just make sure you get a strong combo. You don't want something that's going to break, of course, so pay a little bit extra money to get that strong combo. Having said that, you don't really need such heavy tackle to target tigerfish, depending on, of course, what species you're going after. In most of Africa, you're going after Hydrocinus vittatus, which is the most common species that people target. And we've caught big tiger on very light tackle, so it is definitely possible. David's caught a 5.4 kg on an Assassin medium light rod with 10-pound braid and a 3,000 size reel, so it definitely can be done. And the hook set is definitely not impossible. It might be a tiny bit harder, but yeah, it still works very well. In terms of reels, as I said, a 3,000 to a 5,000 size works well. And yeah, buy from a reputable brand, because otherwise it will break. Get something that has some decent drag, because you do want to set your drag quite tight when fighting tigerfish. If you're fishing in an area with lots of structure, definitely go with a heavier line and maybe braid, maybe a 50-pound braid, because you want to pull the tigerfish out of the structure so it doesn't cut you off. At the end of your braid, you're going to want to tie a leader, of course. I go with 30 to 40 and even 50-pound leaders. You can use fluorocarbon or Maxima Ultra Green, connected with either a uni to uni knot or an FG knot, or whatever your favorite braid to mono knot is. And then below that, I would definitely go with the steel trace, which is pretty much essential tigerfish have such sharp teeth that won't hesitate to cut through any line. So I normally go with a 44-pound piano wire steel trace. You can also use nylon coated steel, which works quite well. And remember, on your traces, don't buy the cheap clip-on traces. They tend to break really easily when you hook a big fish. They just tend to open up. So do maybe make your own traces. It's probably quite a good idea. There'll be a video on how to make traces in the link in the description below. And yeah, definitely important to make sure you have about a 30 centimeter steel trace, and then above that I would say maybe a 50 centimeter fluorocarbon or monofilament leader, just because tigerfish do actually see your line, believe it or not, because I actually know from experience, because once we were fishing with a group of guys and the people who were using leader were just absolutely hammering the fish, and the people who weren't getting nearly as many bites. So I'm a solid believer in leader. Also, leaders can be quite useful in areas with lots of structure, because mono is quite a bit more abrasion resistant than braid, so it might help you to get the fish out of the stumps. Another important thing to consider with your reel is you should have a reel that has quite a high drag, as well as being able to retrieve at quite a fast rate, because sometimes tigers do like to swim towards you at a fast pace, and it's nice to be able to keep a tight line on them. That's obviously a very important thing. These are our Tigerfish setups in front of me. My personal setup is exactly the same as Scott's setup. This is a Shimano Stratic 5000. I normally spool it up with 30-pound braid. This braid is actually JDB Ultra Tech 30-pound. It seems to work pretty well, and I really enjoy the Shimano Stratic. It's worked really nicely. It has a really tough drag. I think the 5000 puts out 24 pounds of drag, which is absolutely insane for such a small little reel. This rod that I have here is Assassin Tempest Tiger Elite. It's designed specifically for tigerfish, and I really have enjoyed this rod. I've used it for quite a while. When your rod is specifically designed for tigerfish, you know it's going to probably do really well. It's a 3-piece, so traveling is not an issue. It literally comes down to this big, which is absolutely insane. It comes in a nice red carry-on case and tube. And yeah, this has definitely been a winner. I've really enjoyed it. Caught a ton of tigerfish on it. And yeah, I'll definitely recommend it to everyone, and I'll definitely recommend this reel. It's been a true win. Next up, if you don't want to go out and buy a specific tiger fishing setup, probably what you have in your fishing arsenal already will work perfectly well. For instance, this is quite a light setup, but this is a Shimano Neck Save 2500. I've got some 15-pound braid on it, and this rod is a Daiwa Crossfire medium fast action. It also has worked really well. Surprisingly, it's not the stiffest rod in the world, but we've been able to catch a number of really nice sized tiger on this rod, and I'm really impressed with it. It works really well. If you want to go the bait casting route, we've had quite a few bait casters, and only one hasn't broken so far, and that is the Sensation Tiger Tamer. It's just an absolute beast of a rod. I love it. It's relatively heavy, which isn't such a bad thing when setting the hook. It helps to drive the hook through that bony tigerfish's mouth. And yeah, this has been an awesome bait casting rod. I have it paired up with the Lures Super Duty Wide and 50-pound JDB Ultra Tech on this reel. This reel holds quite a decent amount of line, and its drag has been really good, and it's held up to the punishment of tigerfish pretty well. I'll be the first to say I haven't taken the best care of this reel. We chuck it in the back of the car, keep it on the boat for days. So it's really good. It's held up really well. And then, as I mentioned before, this is the Assassin Infinity Medium Light, paired up with a Shimano Sienna 3000. If you would want a budget tiger fishing reel, I'd definitely suggest looking at the Shimano Sienna range. We've used it for many years. We used to use the 4000s with 20-pound monofilament, and that was an excellent reel. It worked really well. This rod is also nice and whippy, not too bendy, so it can set the hooks pretty well. I'd probably go with maybe just a medium in the Assassin Infinity, or a medium heavy would probably work really well for tigers, I bet. The fast action is really useful because it works the lures nicely, and it also helps with setting the hook. You don't really want a slow action rod when fishing for tigers. Next up, This is a bass fishing combo, but it will work really, really well for tigerfish, as Murray has shown. This is a Shimano SLX combo. He's been using it for quite a while now, and it works really, really nicely. I think we've got some 20-pound braid on this reel. And yeah, if you're a bass fisherman and you want to try your hand at tiger fishing, most of your frogging rods will do a perfect job at catching tigerfish. Lastly, this is David's rod. This is a Daiwa Megaforce Tiger Tamer. It used to be a bit longer than this, but a crab bit off the end and it became a bit shorter and stiffer, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It does a really, really good job and has caught many, many good tiger. This is also paired up with the Shimano Stratic 5000. You could probably go with the Shimano Stratic 4000, as you don't really need the line capacity that this reel does have. When tiger fishing, you don't need the biggest line capacity. You just need something with a tough drag, because these fish aren't going to run for hundreds of meters. Yeah, so that's a rough overview of what you're going to need for tiger fishing. And yeah, I hope that helps. Comment down below what you guys have found works best for tiger fishing, and I would like to get a healthy discussion going down there on what everyone thinks. And yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys use, what lines you use, what reels you use, and what really works the best for you guys. Next, we're going to discuss what lures I would recommend you take on a tiger fishing trip. Of course, spinners have been very, very effective for a very long time, so I definitely recommend get some tiger whackers and some big mep spinners, although they are quite expensive. Other than that, definitely take along the Afri jig. This is our favorite lure by far. It has been the most effective lure we've used, and we catch 95% of our tiger fish on lure on Afri jigs. It's such an effective lure, I think, because of this one big single hook, and just it has a really, really good action, and you can put a strip of fillet on the back, which makes it absolutely deadly. And you can fish it in all parts of the water column. You can fish it deep, let it sink and fish it deep. You can fish it in the middle, or you can rip it along the surface. It's just an excellent lure, and we find that our hookup ratio is excellent, and our hookup to land ratio is also excellent because of that big single hook. They do come in a wide range of weights as well as a wide range of colors. Our favorite weights are the 1/2 ounce and 3/8 ounce size, and one of our favorite colors is the black and purple Afri jig. But all colors work extremely well. You've seen in our videos we catch tigerfish on all the colors, and they're definitely the most effective lure. If I could only choose one tiger fishing lure, it would definitely be an Afri jig. Just one more thing on color. In clear water, I definitely recommend going with a bit more of a natural color, and then in more dirty water, go with a dark color. It just gives that contrast and helps the tigerfish zone in. And putting a thin strip of belly shine on the back of your Afri jigs makes them absolutely deadly.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a fillet for an Afri jig. So here's how you do it. First you want to scale it to make it easier to cut. Like that. And then you can follow the lines. This knife is blunt. So follow the lines like this.
The belly part is always the best.
Because it's the shiniest.
And it's thin. And the skin is strong. Doesn't come in.
And then you join it like this and you go out. This knife is really blunt.
Pretty perfect. Okay.
So you got a nice skinny piece to put on your jig. Now, okay, then you're going to get your jig and hook it right on the end, but make sure it goes through the skin. Like that.
Hold it up. Let me just show this. So that's basically, focus, that's what your jig should look like. Makes it absolutely deadly. See the action. And then just show how you fish the Afri jig with a bait caster.
So what I like to do is I cast it and I let it sink for 5 seconds.
And you don't even have to move the rod all the time. Sometimes you can just use
Sometimes you can just use your access and use the reel
to give it action.
But the fillet definitely helps.
Yeah, just a bit of shine. Another thing with the Afri jigs is you want to buy quite a few if you're going on a trip, because the tigerfish sharp teeth do cut off quite a lot of the hair and they do get destroyed quite fast. That is one downside. But yeah, it's definitely worth it. They're the most lethal lure that we use for tiger fishing. And yeah, awesome lure. I'll definitely avoid using lures with treble hooks, as when a tigerfish jumps, if the hook doesn't go all the way through the mouth bone, there's a very high chance that it's just going to shake it off. So if you do want to use a lure with treble hooks, I definitely recommend using a much more bendy rod. And the time that I would use a lure with treble hooks is topwater fishing. Topwater fishing for tigerfish is absolutely insane. The explosions are epic. And a lure like this is a Rapala Max Wrap Walk and Roll, the 10-inch version, comes with good treble hooks. But I'll definitely recommend using a much more bendy rod if you're going to try use a treble hook lure. Also some other topwater lures, Halco Rooster Poppers work excellent, and any like Zara Spook type lure like this, Skitter V, Rapala X Skitter V, it works awesomely. And then other types of lures that I definitely recommend taking on your trip, maybe a couple of diving Rapalas, and then copper spoons, copper and silver spoons, also excellent choice to take on a trip, especially in places like the Upper Zambezi. I've heard that these things are deadly. Also, take some 5/0 hooks, circle or J hooks, whatever you prefer, because you're going to be doing live bait fishing and fillet fishing. Make sure that your hook is sharp. Tigerfish jumped behind me just now. Make sure your hook is razor sharp. That's more important than anything else. So yeah, that's very important. Get a good brand like maybe Mustad or any really good brand. Maybe a BKK circle hook would be an excellent choice. And then in terms of baits, fillet fishing and drifting is going to be one of your main techniques to catch tigerfish. So make sure you have a good hook for that. Cut strips. There's going to be shots of how to cut the fillet now. So this is how I cut a fillet for tiger fishing. This is quite a small tiger. So what I'm going to do is go to the thickest part. You just go across its body like this. And I cut it a little bit of a triangle because this part is going to be thicker than this part. And you want to hook the thin part so you get better casting distance. So I just cut a little bit of a triangle, not too much. And then like that. And that's going to be your basic. For drifting, you just want to use a fillet on a hook. You hook the thin part and this thick part helps you cast really far. So the way I hook it is, grab my rod. Normally fish fillet on bait casters or spinning, it doesn't matter. This is a 5/0 hook, just through this skinny part. Just hook it on like that and you're ready to go. Just throw it out the back of the boat. And then just let it out a bit and keep your line in free spool and just your thumb on the spool if you're using a bait caster. If you're using spinning tackle, keep your bail open and keep your finger on the line. Obviously if you have a bait runner, you don't need to worry about that. And then when the fish takes, release, let it run, and then once you think that it's run for a long enough time, set the hook, and then you can even set the hook again if you'd like, and then the fight's on. And then as well as that, live bait. In terms of the live bait that you're most commonly going to use, small tilapia, baby tigerfish are excellent, imbiri, gobies, basically any small fish, even squeakers work. Tigerfish are absolutely voracious predators and will hit actually really big live baits. But when using big live baits, what the main issue is the hookup. You got to let it eat for quite a long time and then set the hook, and maybe make a trace that has two hooks on it. But yeah, I'm going to make a whole separate video on live bait fishing for tigerfish and how that's done, so keep an eye open for that, and once it's made there'll be a link to that in the description below. Another technique that we sometimes use is float fishing with bait. It's quite hard to set the hook sometimes when float fishing for bait, but sometimes the tigerfish are in the upper part of the water column, and it really helps to keep your bait up there to get the bait in the strike zone. When fishing with fillet and drifting, obviously you're going to fish with, if you're using spinning tackle, fish with your bail open, keep your finger on the line, and then when the fish takes, let it run for about 10 seconds I'd say before setting the hook. You can let it for longer or shorter depending on how finicky the fish are being on that particular day. And yeah, set the hook pretty hard. You can set the hook maybe once or twice when doing that. Another very effective way of finding the tigerfish and catching really big tiger is trawling. We normally trawl Afri-jigs with a small piece of fillet on the back behind the boat. We normally let it out quite far, but to find the tigerfish you should experiment with different speeds and with different amounts of line let out behind the boat. And yeah, it's a very effective way of fishing. We normally catch quite a lot of tiger, and it's a good way of locating where the fish are by covering a lot of water. A lot of the other artificial lures available are very, very good for catching tigerfish, but we don't often use them because they're quite expensive and always worried about them breaking off or getting snapped, that kind of thing. But lipless crankbaits, jerk baits, rapalas, any of those kind of things, just make sure that they have strong enough hooks. They do work really, really well, but we don't often use them. We prefer just to use the Afri-jig. It's much simpler and catches a ton of fish. I would just like to take this opportunity to show you guys this bag that I've been testing out for the past few months. This bag is made by a South African company called Zubait, and they sent this bag to me to test, and I've been really, really impressed with it. It's got some really, really good build quality. The zips haven't broken or anything yet. I've used this bag in the salt, and the fittings and zips haven't eroded. I've also used it in the freshwater, and it's really awesome to keep your Afri-jigs and trace wire and swivels in, and it's really nice. It's a handy bag that you can just take out for an afternoon's fishing, and yeah, I definitely recommend it. There'll be a link to their website in the description below. Definitely do check it out. Some other very useful equipment that I think you'll need if you're going on a tiger fishing trip is a good pair of long nose pliers to remove the hooks, because you don't want to be putting your fingers anywhere near those deadly teeth. Also, a landing net is very important. You don't want to be putting your hand in crocodile infested water. It's just not worth it. Along with that, I think a good pair of boga grips to handle your fish, so you don't have to put your hand in the fish's gills or something like that. And a good scale is also very, very nice to have, so you get an accurate weight of your catch. So next we're going to discuss areas that look fishy and where you should fish with these tiger fish. Of course, tigers are predators, so they're going to follow the food, which is the bait fish. So areas, especially in still water, which is what we have most experience with. We have most experience with lakes and that kind of thing. So areas with lots of dead trees in the water are always a good place to start. Areas along the bank where maybe a big tree has fallen over into the water attracts a lot of bait fish, and there'll often be big tigers and quite a few tiger hanging around for any bait fish that might get out of the trees. Also, drop-offs, excellent spots to target tiger fish. They wait on the drop-off for any unsuspecting bait fish to swim over the edge. Also, they do come up onto the shallow flats to hunt. You can find them pretty much all over, just depending on where the food is at that particular time. In rivers, below rapids is always an excellent spot. Deep channels, areas where maybe the water isn't flowing as fast that they don't waste so much energy. Up against reed banks, all those kind of areas. Often you will have a guide when you're tiger fishing. The guide will probably know best, so do listen to them, take their advice, and they'll always take you to the best spot because of course they want you to catch. In terms of times and day and weather, the early morning and late afternoon is really a great time to fish. Normally the tiger fish don't like it when it's windy. They don't like pressure changes, and they just go completely off the bite. So normally when it's windy we don't really catch that much. But yeah, to locate the tiger fish, I definitely recommend covering the entirety of the water column. Use your jig to fish it deep, medium and high in the water column and find out where the fish are. Once you find out where they are, you'll probably be, if they're there and they're willing to bite, they will bite. So yeah, if you don't get any bites at a certain spot, move, cover as much water as you can and try find out where the fish are. Tigers do often move in shoals, so often where you get one, there'll be lots more, so carry on fishing in that area. Also, if one fisherman hooks a tiger, another fisherman should probably try cast in the area where you hooked it quite quickly, because obviously the other tiger fish are going to be following that one that's hooked, so you might get another one. Just be careful not to tangle the guy who's already hooked up. And now we're moving on to how to hook a tiger fish, fight it and land it. Depending on what style of lure or bait you're using depends on how you set the hook. If you're using a topwater with treble hooks, I wouldn't really recommend setting the hook extremely hard because it'll probably just rip the lure straight out of the tiger fish's mouth. If you're using fillet or live bait, I recommend letting the fish eat for whatever you feel is right, probably nothing under 7 seconds I would probably say, and then let it run and then flip your bail and set the hook once, maybe twice, as hard as you can, and then after that keep your line as tight as you can. Never let there be any slack, and the tigerfish will try jump and shake your hook. When you see the line rising through the water, angle your rod tip down into the water to try and prevent it from jumping, because the time that the tiger comes off the most is when it jumps and shakes its head. When you're using lures like Afri-jig or spinner, normally just the hit is so vicious that it'll set the hook for itself, but you can also set the hook harder if you would like. But normally I don't do that. It normally works pretty well. The hit is just so vicious that that single hook just gets driven in there really, really well. When it comes to fighting your fish, steer them away from structure. They will always try go in the trees, in the structure, in the rocks. They're really dirty fighters, so be careful of that. Tigerfish, they normally use all their energy quite quickly, but as the fish gets close to the boat is the most dangerous time, because often anglers get too excited and they try force it into the net and it'll get off. So when it gets close to the boat, it's going to do lots of like short runs and dives. Just be patient and don't force it. Tire it out and get that fish into the net. Once your fish is in the net, bring it onto the boat and be gentle with these fish. They're not the most robust creatures. If you do drop them or whatever, it does affect them. Bring your fish into the net into the boat, and weigh your fish in the net. Using a boga grip to hold the fish up like this is not really the best thing for the fish. Don't weigh it by sticking the scale into the gills. Don't hold your fish in the gills. The best way to hold your fish is either with a boga grip in the mouth supporting its belly, or you can grab its tail tightly. They are very, very slimy, and hold your other hand underneath its belly. That's normally the best way to handle a tiger. Be careful of those teeth. Get a nice photo. The best way to get a photo with a tigerfish is to hold its tail and hold its and support its belly. Get a photo that way, and then once you've done that, remove your hook with long nose pliers and get your fish back in the water as fast as possible. Tigers don't last that long out the water. When reviving your fish, be very, very careful of crocodiles. It actually isn't worth it to hold your arm in the water in places with a lot of crocodiles. Sometimes it's best just to torpedo your fish head first and it gets a lot of oxygen through its gills that way. Or just release it quickly. The best thing is to not keep it out for long so you don't have to do that. If it is quite tired, keep your fish in the net and hold it in the water until it is revived. Another way of reviving your tiger is hold it with the boga grip and in the water and drive your boat slowly. It gets the water running through the gills and often gets them back to life pretty fast. Definitely be very, very careful of crocodiles. When you're tiger fishing, it can be very easy to get very, very frustrated because it actually is a really difficult type of fishing. The tigers sometimes are just not biting, and also they can easily spit your hook. You get a lot of bites, but you land very, very few of the ones that you hook. So don't give up, persevere, and you will succeed. And even if you don't, enjoy the scenery around you. I really hope you all learned a lot from this video. Remember, even if you aren't catching on your trip, enjoy the beauties of nature. Most places where you go tiger fishing will have tons of wildlife and absolutely stunning scenery. And of course, enjoy the great company of the people around you. And just make the best of your trip, even if you aren't catching. I really hope it did help. I really hope you all get some really big fish. And yeah, get out there, catch some tigers. Let's have a healthy discussion in the comments section about everyone's techniques. I'd love to hear what you all think and what you all use and what you all found to be the most effective way to catch tigers. Remember, if you did enjoy this video, please do share it with your friends. Do subscribe, click that notification bell, and above all else, please give this video a like. It really helps us out and helps us reach a wider audience. Thank you all very, very much for watching.